We are counting down to the Ablekuma North Rerun. It's going to be 121. In fact, many look at what is about to happen and they say this is setting the stage for a bit of chaos. The NPP says, well, they will boycott this particular rerun, but there are fears that, yeah, they may boycott, but it may not necessarily be peaceful. So how do we really resolve that and anticipate and deal with the issues concerning the Ablekuma North Rerun in a few polling stations? Because as we speak currently, it's been 184 days since the swearing in of that new parliament, and so the people of Ablekuma North have not had representation for 184 days. A court of competent jurisdiction today recognized this and used that as a basis to dismiss the MPP's application to injunct the rerun on Friday. But the battle has really been between these two strong women on the ground in Ablekuma North. Both of them are laying claim to that particular seat. The NDC's Rabina Auburn says she won it, and of course I'm pretty sure you've heard Nana Kwafri also say she won it. Well, that is one that needs to be resolved somehow. The Electoral Commission has chosen a path to resolving that, and that will mean that 19 polling stations will now have to conduct a rerun. The Electoral Commission will supervise the rerun in these 19 polling stations, and this will happen this very Friday. The numbers are there for us to see. We are talking about some 6,863 registered voters in these key areas, and we are looking at some 64% voter turnout. The last time all of them came together to vote on the December 7 elections. But we know this has traveled a fair bit. We know that it started with 37 pink sheets that were destroyed on the back of the eruption of violence in that particular constituency. 18 of the scan results, the EC tell us they were able to verify, but then you look at the remainder of the 19, they say they were unable to verify. That's in their presiding officers did not verify, but Electoral Commission and the MPP are both disagree on this. But that is fundamentally why the Electoral Commission has chosen these 19 areas to rerun the elections. You then need to look at the other side of the argument. That is the MPP side of the argument. The MPP says it's not about 19 polling stations. It is about 3 outstanding polling stations that needed to be collated on the back of the December 7, 2024 elections, and that is what the EC told them they will do, and so that is what they should simply do. The EC, having done a bit of work, comes out to say, well, it's not 3 after all, because we can't actually verify 19. The NDC has always been in favor of a rerun. They want a rerun in all the affected areas in 37. They're not getting 37, they're getting 19, but they are okay with it for now. But one of the things you need to look at is where the MPP is right now. And the General Secretary who we spoke to yesterday on the show has been very clear that they will not participate in the rerun. So emphatically we know that the MPP will boycott Friday's vote. In fact, as we speak tonight, we know that the Electoral Commission is printing the ballots for Friday. The MPP, they have boycotted that too because the parties were written to participate and observe the printing process. They haven't been there. So they are really going ahead with what they've promised they will do, which is just simply stay out of it. But this is a constituency that is a stronghold of the New Patriotic Party, and for which reason you see there that fantastic performance over the period. They've always held that seat as far as the parliamentary elections are concerned, all the way from 1996 since we started tracking this to 2020. What you will notice, though, in 2020, the gap was so very high. The NDC, they've been lucky if they get anywhere close to 40%. They've never reached that before. But if you look at where the tally was at the time that the controversy erupted, with the exception of those 3 polling stations, the gap between the two, the NDC's candidate and the MPP candidate, was just above 400 votes. And that should tell you something, that the NDC is the force in that constituency in terms of the momentum that they have going to those 3 outstanding at the time last year. But yes, of course, you can still win an election with 400. That is the MPP's position, that they won it. No matter how close it was, they believe they've won it. But this clearly shows you that this is a stronghold. But we know what happened. The 2024 elections was a tsunami election, sweeping away places that NDC dared not dream. So you will not be surprised that this closes the gap quite significantly. But when you rerun an election in 19 polling stations, in this current climate, it will have an impact. And that is why the stakes are very, very high indeed. Now, the journey, as I said, quite long, but let me summarize for you. You remember December 7, polls were held there, and then you come to December 9, we know Rabana Auburn declared winner, controversy then erupts, EC then reverses the declaration. So there's been a fair bit of controversy there with the EC at the center of this. And then December 17, we know that then the ballot papers are destroyed, violence erupts in that particular constituency. Then this matter goes to court. Court says go back and collect the 3. Then January 8th, first coalition attempt happened, disrupted, it couldn't go ahead. Then we have another attempt at collating again, this time on the 17th of January. Party supporters hold the second attempt to collate. Minority then petitioned the CID to provide the men for the coalition to happen. EC then rules out the rerun at the time because, as you know, the EC deputy chair was in parliament, makes the point that as far as they're concerned, they're going ahead with the 3. June 25th, EC then calls for the leaders, the NDC calls for the removal of the EC chairpersons here in the studio with the national chairman with me. Then subsequent to that, we saw the EC then issue a statement explaining that they will have to, on the back of everything that's happened and discovering that 19 polling stations could not be verified by their presiding officers, rerun in those 19 polling stations. And then we know that on July 8th, EC begins the printing of ballots, which is currently underway. The NPP's candidate there obviously goes and challenges this at the court, simply saying that the EC must be ordered to comply with the initial ruling and that the EC cannot call a rerun without recourse to the courts. That was her position in the matter. And as you know, today, the court has dismissed this application to place an injunction on Friday's rerun. And the court's decision is predicated simply on the fact that it was unmeritorious, because on the balance of harm, the people in Ablekuma North will be done far greater harm, irreparable indeed, if they are denied representation for more than 180 days that they've had, possibly for how long it takes for the substantive matter to be decided, and that the candidate in the matter, whatever harm that may be caused there, can be compensated for. And so the court took the decision on behalf of the people in Ablekuma North who need representation, and so threw this out completely. So that's where we are tonight on the subject, right? And that is the court's decision on it. But then you look at the factor that really places this particular rerun and why it makes it very contentious. You need to look at the stakes. What are the stakes? The stakes revolves around a certain number, 184. Why is that important? This number here, 184. 184 is important because this will be the first time that any political party can, very realistically, get two-thirds majority in parliament. First time. No party in our fourth Republican history had ever come close to that. The NDC is on the brink of doing just that. If they secure that seat, they move from 183 seats in parliament to 184. That gives them absolute supermajority with a two-thirds majority. And there's a constitutional matter there. The things they can do with that power is enormous. And a friend of mine joked today that if they secure that one seat and get 184, the only thing possibly they can do is to turn a man into a woman and a woman into a man. But they can do everything else in parliament without the MPP minority side. A few things they can do if we go to the constitution. The first thing, they can do constitutional amendments without the minority. It will be as if the MPP were not in parliament at all. All the 184 members, once they can get them onto the, on the floor of parliament and vote on the matter, they can go through constitutional amendments very easily, because you need that two-thirds to do that. Then a few things you need you need a two-thirds majority to do. They can impeach the president, but of course, as you know, there's no way to impeach their own president. But that's a power that they have in 1/8/4 two-thirds majority. They can also amend non-entrenched constitutional provisions, and I told you that. So a series of things, for example, they amend the constitution to allow for voting or election of MMDCEs on non-partisan basis. Is something that if they get Ablekuma North, they can simply go to Parliament and do. They don't need the MPP at all, because the MPP say they want to do that, elect them MDCs on partisan basis. NDC says we want to do that on non-partisan basis. Okay, they can simply go to Parliament and have that amended very easily. With that approval and extension of state of emergency, again, they can easily do that, right? Overriding a presidential veto on bail. So the power that they will have is enormous, and no political party has ever had that before. And that is why the NDC wants this seat, because they will have enormous powers to do anything they want to do in Parliament. So having appreciated the stakes, let's sit for a conversation. Let's really look at the EC's dilemma. But we must also ask a fundamental question about the thirst for reset, or call it reforms. This maybe is another test case that should invite all of us to consider reforming our electoral process and the electoral system. Again, we have 180 plus days where one constituency hasn't got representation in Parliament. In the last Parliament's life, for a whole 4 years, one constituency again went 4 years without representation. That clearly cannot be acceptable in the democracy. My guests will join me for a conversation tonight on the substantive matter of Ablekuma North and the bigger issues here on PM Express. PM Express is a packed studio, and you can see that right in short here, because I have almost everybody else seated for conversation. And plus, I have Dr. Kojo Asante joining me on Zoom also, because there are bigger issues that we also need to tackle as part of this whole conversation. And this is not just an Ablekuma North conversation. It's really about our democracy and our electoral process also. So I'm delighted that he can join us. PMSS is always brought to you by Centric Stance. It is strong, it is tough. It's also brought to you by Academic Times newspaper and by Pepsodent Cavity Fighter. My guest joining me in the studio is the Deputy General Secretary of the MPP. That is Haruna Mohammed joins us. I'm grateful that he can join us. Also joining me is Musa Dankwa. He's Executive Director of the Global Info Analytics. They've been doing the polling, and I'm interested to hear what they have found about the poll about to be held on Friday. And so he'll share his thoughts. Tanku Rashid Computer is a Deputy National Elections Director and IT at the NDC. And he joins us in the studio also. I've told you about Dr. Kojo Asante already. He's a Director of Policy Engagements and Partnerships at the CDD. And Dr. Kwame Asante, the man I always speak to on Zoom, Professor, joins us here in the studio. It's been a while since I had him in the studio, so I'm delighted that he could join me tonight. Prof, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. And he's a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Political Science Department. Let's start with the very latest on this. This went to court today, Haruna, and the court dismissed the application to injunct the process. How is the party responding to it? Well, what's your next move?
Thank you very much, Evans. I would say good evening to your cherished viewers. We're in a mourning mood. We've lost our very young MP, the MP for Akwetia, Honorable Ernest Kumi. And that is why I'm clouded in black today. Today, we went to court on a hearing on a motion that we have filed before the High Court. The High Court heard the injunction application, not the substantive case. We listened to the judge. It was an ex-party, but we filed it making sure that it was on notice. The judge spoke, but he did not speak on the point of law. Any student with constitutional background in terms of constitutional law and also law of evidence or case will understand that with the judgment given by the judge there was no mention or citation of any case to support the judgment that we're giving. That is why our council has requested for proceedings and judgment for today. And from there, the legal counsel will pick it from there so that at least we'll be able to make a certain case. This is not the first time that we have met such judges. We know the history behind this judge, we all know. And we are not perturbed, we are not moved. It's not something that has fractured us.
But you agree this is the final nail in your coffin?
No, it's not the final nail. These are preliminaries. This is just jokings or some level of a start game or teasers, because this is not the substance of the case. We were seeking to injunct the action on Friday. But that is not the substance of the matter. The substance of the matter is in the eating. And that is why I am saying that this is not the finality of it.
But you agree, though, that if the substantive case is obviously going to travel beyond Friday, the elections would have been completed, whoever wins would have been declared, and you've already...
Evans, if you had listened to the judge, when Gary made his case in court, you heard him say that eventually if the court decides and our candidate is finally declared, the Electoral Commission will compensate. You know compensation in law? We went to the court not for compensation. We went to court for a win. It tells you that the case we've sent to court is further strengthened because the Electoral Commission cannot compensate. In the issues of matters of law, the EC does not compensate. The EC complies. And when you go to court and you seek for justice, and when justice is delivered, justice is seen to be implemented. And EC certainly cannot be compensating. Any judge or any student of law or any lawyer listening to the judge and listening to me will understand the angle at which I am speaking. Okay. And I'm telling you that our council is looking at the judgment, and we have written for the proceedings for today. Okay. And we'll pick it from there.
Okay. Tanku, you were not in court, were you? Your NDC, were you represented?
No, we're not in court, but we're interested party. We're interested in the outcome of the case. Before that, let me say good morning to my colleagues here. And then,
we're in the evening, not in the morning.
I say good evening. Yes, to the good people of Bimbilla constituency. You know, when I say, I know Haruna will not like it, but Bimbilla is a nice place. And I invite Evans to visit there. You need to come to Bimbilla and visit. You see, what they filed in court was vexatious. And I'm not surprised the judge says it was unmeritorious. Why were they doing this? Why were they trying to injunct a process which for about 184 days, these people are not represented? Is that the interest of the MPP? Is that what they did? You remember what happened in 2020, after the 2020 election? 4 years, Saul didn't have a representation. Is that the kind of democracy you want to practice in Ghana? Look, this matter, I'm surprised they even went to court. I'm sure we are going to go into the matter. Several IPAC meetings, the last one, which we managed to resolve and ended up with this 19 polling stations. The MPP participated in each of these processes. They knew the outcome of the decision even before it was announced.
You mean the EC has been transparent to all parties?
I'm telling you, very, very transparent.
In how they arrived at
the 19? They arrived at the 19.
From the 3 outstanding?
From 62. The whole thing started from 62 polling stations, not even 37. And that's what I'm saying, that a lot of people are not privy to this information. That the matter is not even about 37, it's about 62 polling stations. After the December 8th declaration, we ended up having problem with 62 polling stations. So when it came back around December 24th to do the recollation, at that point, when all of us agreed that we didn't have the pink sheet, interestingly enough, the MPP had 25 carbon copies. Our problem is scanned copies, not carbon copies, because carbon copies are given to political parties at the polling station. So if your opponent has a carbon copy, it's as good as you also having the same. So you can defer to them. So when they brought the 25 carbon copies, that brought it down to the 37 from the 62.
So you accepted
the
carbon copies?
Carbon copies of the MPP.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. They are not telling people the truth. So when we accepted this and said, fine, we have no problem. Since the 25 is part of this 62, take it out. Collect that one. They did that. Then it now left with 37, which is their scanned copies. They brought the scanned copies. That's why we had issues with them. And said the 37, they are, no, we are not going to agree to any scanned copies because we can't trust M people.
So if they had come with the carbon copies for the 37,
for the 37, we would have gone with it. Because after that one there, you cannot fake it. It's clear, everybody will see it. But scan one, in the era of technology, just give me a laptop and I will design it for you. And I'll bring it up publicly and say that we should accept this. So when they brought their 37 scan copies, the last time, and they did it, the Electoral Commission were being magnanimous. In fact, they also did something good at that point, although we had difficulties with them. Called the presiding officers to come and authenticate the scan copies. We had issues with it. We think that the presiding officers could have been compromised. But the EC stood its ground. Interestingly, only 18 of them were able to authenticate the 37 they brought, saying that these 18 are from us. We conducted the election. These are the results. Actually, what you brought are correct. But this 19, oh yeah, nobody's going to accept it. Nobody could accept the 19. So on the basis, we said, fine, the last IPAC meeting, we said, okay, if 18 were accepted by your presiding officers, take the 18, add it to the tally.
What did the MPP say in that meeting?
They were in that meeting.
But I'm told they objected to it. Yesterday, the General Secretary
I'm saying that their problem is that they still insist that all their scanned copies should be accepted. And we say, only 18 has been accepted by the presiding officers who conducted the election. This 19, nobody authenticated it. The Electoral Commission presiding officers all ran away from it. You remember there was one who came and said, this is not my signature. Another person said, look, my polling station, I didn't have a rejected ballot. But this scanned copy you are showing to me has a rejected ballot. So it's a fake one. That's the 19 we are talking of.
Okay.
So this 19, that one, the Electoral Commission haven't looked at it once again. And you see, interesting enough, Madame Jean Mensah did not get proper briefing because she did not participate in the processes alone. Until when we had these 2 IPAC meetings, she sat through and now saw the truth in it. That her people were not giving her the true briefing of what transpired from their old office to their corporate office. Then that she realized that she asked about which people authenticated the 18. They name it and say, but if they authenticated the 18, why should you people have problem with that? They will say, okay, we want resolution for the matter. I sat through the meeting. I said, okay, take the 18. We agree. Give it to them. But this 19, who authenticated it? All the commissioners were there, the directors. Nobody could say who authenticated it because all the presiding officers all ran away from it.
Okay.
And so that's how we arrive at it. So why will you go to court to injunct a process?
So that's the NDC's view. Quickly, you have counter evidence to what he just said?
Yes.
Briefly, before I come to briefly.
Thank you very much, Evans. I've sent a letter from the Electoral Commission to you.
This is the June 11th.
Yes, the June 11th. And the June 11th response to us was based on a request from us, a letter by the General Secretary to them. I'm happy he's quoting the 37 polling stations. Permit me to read the second paragraph under commitment to the High Court directive. It says, as you may recall, 37 polling stations results were outstanding for the completion of the collation process before the High Court directive on 4th January 2025. Out of the outstanding 37 polling station results, the Commission has collated 17, 13, and 4 polling stations on 5th, 6th, and 8th January 2025, respectively. A total of 34 polling stations results have been collated since the High Court directive. Currently, 3 polling station results are outstanding for the completion of the collation process. Meaning that on the 5th, 17 was collated. On the 6th, 13 was collated. And on the 8th, 4 were collated.
But this was
Electoral Commission.
11th June.
Yes, this is.
But since then, there were being subsequent meetings.
There has not been any subsequent.
I mean, after 11,
the last meeting that we had was a decision meeting. Was a decision meeting where the Electoral Commission, after communicating to us on document and communicating to Parliament.
This was before the presiding officers
This
came
was
out to
after.
say
This is after.
they could not authenticate.
We are talking about June. Oh.
I know.
Just this June, last month.
No, but this is 11th. I mean,
Yeah,
this
11th of June.
Today we are at 9th. So that
No,
tells you that
after them appearing before Parliament, no presiding officer had come before them.
Remember that this statement they issued that talk about presiding officer was just last week.
I am telling you, they issued a statement based on a decision they took. But after Parliament reportage, no presiding officer has been called to authenticate.
But the parliamentarians came before the presiding officers.
The presiding officer's own was during the period of collation. Okay? That was during the period. You remember they have been asking for security to collate. So after reporting to Parliament and reporting to us per our request, nothing has been done. There has not been any meeting for anybody to come and authenticate. And let me tell you, this is CI 127, Regulation 43, F, if I may read. Give each candidate or the representative or counting agent of a candidate a completed and signed copy of the Parliamentary Election Resource Collation Form as set out in Form 1C of the schedule, and the Parliamentary Election Resource Summary Sheet as set out in Form 1D of the schedule. Ask him. He's a director of elections, long-standing director of elections, from Northern Region up to becoming a deputy director of elections. Where is their pink sheets?
Okay, so
all that they have been talking about, all that. Have you heard him talk about their pink sheets?
Hold on for a second.
They were not denied.
I want to bring in Musa, I need to bring in Prof, I need to bring in Dr. Asante. Do you want to answer that question briefly? Because that's how it's kept coming up. Where's your pink sheet?
Yes, that is the question. I'm saying that when we met at the IPAC, the three parties, NDC, MPP, Electoral Commission, we all agreed that we don't have the pink sheet, the 62.
We did not agree. We had our cabinet.
But you admitted that we actually had.
I'm saying that at that point, that is where the 25 came about.
They had
yes, we went with 274 pink sheets.
No, wait.
He's carbonated.
He's admitted that he didn't
yes,
have
saying that we didn't have because there was a violence at the collation center, and we lost our pink sheets. So we're truthful to the commission that we don't have the pink sheet. But if our opponent have carbon copies, we can use that. We accepted. So we accepted their 25 and reduced it to 37.
Okay.
And now they said, but they don't have any carbon copies. They went to their office and brought scanned copies.
So clarify for me. After this June 11, subsequent to that, EC goes to Parliament, repeats the point that only 3 outstanding polling stations. After Parliament, when did the presiding officer's matter of non-verification come in?
That's why I'm saying that Madame Jean Mensah was not properly briefed by her lieutenants. Because all along, she believes that it was level 3, not knowing that at the time she's talking of the 11th June, we had crossed that path. The authentication was done for only 18 polling stations out of the 37. She didn't know this. It was our meeting that we now brought it and told them that, look, this thing you are talking of, you authenticated in level 3 is not true. Only 18 were being authenticated. The presiding officer who came to authenticate were only 18. The rest who came there had problems and ran away and said they cannot authenticate this 19. That's why the resolution came. At that time, Dr. Bosman had already committed himself in Parliament without telling the boss about this story.
Okay, so
so that's why the issue came about.
Prof, yes. Prof. Asante and Musa Danka, please stay with me for a second because there's a lot to get your reaction on based on what the parties have said. But let me go to Dr. Pubri Asante. Doc, you are the CDD, you do a lot of work with the parties and the EC and democracy. You also do a lot of CODEO work. You've heard the parties on this. There's a lot of evidence out there that you've also seen. I mean, having heard them tonight explain what has happened, what sense are you making of all this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Evans, and a very good evening to everyone. Also, let me express my deepest condolences to the family of Honorable Ernest Kumi and to the MPP for his passing. So I think for some of us, we have election fatigue. So 6 months down the line, we're still dealing with elections, but that's what we have to deal with. I think the EC has to take some of the blame, but certainly not all the blame. We just came back from a post-election workshop in Koforidia. My friend Aruna was there. 2016, 2020, one of the recommendations that came from the post-election workshop was that we needed to set up electronic transmission of results from the polling station. I think if we had that, we wouldn't have this problem that we are having. But one of the things that also surprises me that in a lot of these places where pink sheets were destroyed and some ballot papers and stuff were destroyed, there were a lot of cameras, there was a lot of video, and yet up to 6 months down the line, nobody's been held responsible for this. It really gives people incentives to, orchestrate all kinds of issues, at the polling station, and put all of us in a very, very difficult place. But the issue that has come up all throughout this process is one that our laws are inadequate to deal with some of the issues that have presented itself. Because elections are really about clear rules. It's always in the interest of the Electoral Commission where there's express provision for addressing, particular things, and you can see that in our regulations, we, all the steps are clearly provided. Now, in the case where your pink sheets, you cannot use your pink sheets to verify and establish the validity of an election. What is the procedure? That is not clear. So it looks like you have to go back to the general function of the Electoral Commission to draw, some direction from there. But if you want to do that, then you have to be very consistent with how you apply it. Or at best, you go to the court for direction. And that's where I think that the EC was wrong, because it needed, after coming to the conclusion that it could not get consensus on completing the collation, then it needed to go to court and say, well, we cannot complete it. If we cannot complete it, the only way in which to secure universal suffrage for people in Ablekuma North was to have a rerun. So in a way, the MPP went to do the job for them. Because I think then that gives you much more cover when there is a gap in the law. And that was not done. So the solution in the future, of course, is legal reform. But in the present, I think it's still the courts that has to establish. And from what the judge, because remember that the judge in the injunction case was saying, can you confirm that the EC says they are able to collate the process now? I mean, they have the consensus to do that, and of course, it was a one-party application, so that was not established. But at the end, that's more likely what you get from the court. The court will say, well, if you cannot find consensus and there is no way in which to authenticate the results, then you need to go and rerun the election. So for me, I don't think the MPP should boycott it. They eventually ended up in court. I think that's the right forum. I think that the time that was given for the rerun is too short, and that they should petition the Electoral Commission to extend the time so that they can properly prepare and participate in the rerun. But I don't see any other outcome at this point, because the Electoral Commission itself is indicating that it cannot authenticate some of the polling stations, and the law is not there to find other ways of doing that.
Okay, so you are for a rerun?
No, I'm not. For me, as I said, at this point, it's very clear that the Electoral Commission, if even some of its, even if it was 3 polling stations that were left, it could not authenticate the results for Ablekuma North, and therefore it's a rerun. But I would prefer that is established by the court and not the Electoral Commission. And, when we get an opportunity, we'll raise that. For me, because fundamentally, and you look at Regulation 36 of CI 127, when it talks about interruptions and suspensions during voting, that is very much where the Electoral Commission can intervene during the voting process. But when people have cast their vote and polling station results have been declared, and it's just an administrative matter of collating the process, you shouldn't be giving the Electoral Commission any power to be declaring reruns at that point. So, it's not a power that we should be giving to the Electoral Commission to be doing that, because it's a very dangerous situation if you begin, after people have exercised their franchise, to now, as part of the coalition process, to be asking that these things are done all over again. So we need to really sort that out, I think, legally. But as I said, at this point, it's better for the courts to say this is the path to go. And in a way, through the injunction, that is the direction that I think we are moving. And I would encourage the MPP, as I said, to participate, even though I think the time is short and they should petition.
Okay. Dr. Sasante, you've heard the facts.
Yeah.
MPP is not going to participate. I mean, maybe he'll tell us if they've changed their mind as of tonight. No. But when you finish, I'll ask him that. Do you reckon that the MPP has a case based on how this case has traveled?
Oh, yeah. See, if you look at, one, the direction of the courts from the word go, the January one would have expected EC to go back to court when there are difficulties. But events took a different turn. EC didn't do that. They went to Parliament and gave conflicting accounts. That is the whole basis of what we are embroiled in.
I mean, do you accept this suggestion that at the time that the EC deputy chair was in Parliament saying that it's only 3, the chairperson herself had not been properly briefed? If that's the case, that is such a significant indictment.
I'm surprised to hear that, because that should have come out. Because the narrative as we got it in town is what you and I are alive to.
Yeah.
This is new to me. But that is unfortunate. Then what's the meaning of the officers who represented the EC boss? They should be able to tell the EC boss what to do. So the whole issue, as EC ignore that you've gone to court has given directions. If you are in difficulty, and I support what Kojo said, you go back and say that there are difficulties. So then you seek further directions. On your own accord, you went to Parliament, told a different story, and a few days later, a U-turn. Obviously, the actors within this business will obviously raise a finger and challenge the process. So I was very much happy that the MPP took the matter to court. And then we want to hear what the court will say.
Okay, so but as we speak now, that court case, injunction thrown out, the substantive matter is going to be heard. But as you know, in Ghana, it's happened before where a parliamentary election is in challenge. The decision is then delivered after the 4th year.
Yeah.
when the whole term is already expired.
We saw in Iowa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it becomes a moot point now. And the case is now, they don't even have a date yet for the commencement of actual hearing on the matter. That is where the problem is. And the concern is this is setting up Friday to be possibly very chaotic too, because the other members in that constituency will simply not watch the same process go by when they are not participating. That is, I guess, the danger approaching Friday.
I think as a state, we need to go back to the drawing board and get certain basics right relative to the rules governing the conduct of elections. It is important that all stakeholders will pick all the pieces together, that after this exercise, we should sit down and see where reforms are necessary. Because you and I can glean from the whole process that there are a lot of missing links. And if we don't correct them, it's going to serve as precedent, and next election, people will take the conversation and not further. And that will not be in the interest of the state. So I think we have to...
Should the MPP boycott?
I don't believe so. What is it that they are afraid of? Even though I sympathize with them. This is your constituency. You have won. It's your stronghold. Yeah. So what is it they are afraid of? They should go there and then organize themselves and compete. Yes.
Musa Danko, would you agree based on the work that your team has been doing in the constituency?
I would not advocate for any political action to boycott election if there is no need to do so. I think competition is very good. It keeps the spirit of everybody high. If you go to a match and the top team that you expect to come doesn't show up and you have a lower tier team playing, certainly doesn't energize anybody there. This is politics. Some people will show up and others will not show up. But I believe that after the court ruling, they should have participated.
Mm. Okay, so now let's... Okay, but even if I come to what the data is saying about their strength or otherwise, give me your... When you've been polling, I'll come to the strength. What was the last time you polled there?
October 2024.
Okay, so 2024 you polled there.
Yes.
Okay, and at that time you polled, the MPP was the strongest.
I mean, they were not on the ropes.
Okay.
At the time, the NDC candidate was slightly ahead in the polls, but about 8% or so people said they wouldn't vote. Quite a big number in your stronghold, and 2% said they were undecided. And I believe it was 2% that decided the outcome of the election because it was nearly on the knife edge.
Okay, but so in the outcome though, MPP tell us that because they have all their pink sheets, they claim they won it, but they won it by just over 400 votes. Is that something that you picked up too?
No, not exactly, because on the day of the vote, on the election day, we did an exit poll in the constituency. We showed that the NDC candidate was winning in the exit poll.
Close?
It was slightly, comfortable enough. Wasn't that 49, 50. It was slightly above that.
The NDC candidate?
Yes.
Okay. That's fascinating. I'll come and sort of unpack that a bit more. Let me come to Haruna. Haruna, have you reconsidered the position to boycott on the back of the court ruling?
Evans, there's no court ruling. There is a decision.
The injunction.
Yes.
The ruling on the injunction.
Injunction is not the substance of the matter. Injunction is a way getting to the substance of the matter. Mm. So the court ruling on the injunction does not pave the way to make a decision on the substance of the matter. Mm. You see, the MPP is living on a principle. That principle is what has guided us from 1992 to date. Many people spoke against our decision to boycott the parliamentary elections in 1992. After we boycotted that, we came out with what we call the stolen verdict. The stolen verdict benefit to our electoral system today cannot be overridden. Many people in academia, in political discourse, will tell you that the MPP's proposals in terms of electoral reforms after boycotting 1992 elections was very key, or has been key. And that is why today we are touting our electoral systems to be the best in Africa, if not the best in only West Africa. So we are on a principle. The principle is that what is happening now is not in consonance with the law. The law does not give that permission. And if you read carefully the CI, in Regulation 41, when you heard the CDD, Dr. Asante, Regulation 41 talks about decision on ballot paper. And if you permit me, the High Court may on an election petition review the decision of the returning officer on a question arising in respect of a ballot paper under this regulation. So it means that when voting is started and concluded and there is a decision on a ballot paper, even in election petition, it must be decided by the High Court. The same CI Regulation 42, equal number of votes in parliamentary elections. When there is equal number of votes in parliamentary elections, the CI says the authority to Electoral Commission is to conduct a second election. And in this particular second election, a writ has to be sent and forwarded to the commission for the commission to ensure that this second election is conducted. If you check the declaration process in Regulation 43, nowhere has it been mentioned that when election is still in the process or election is concluded and there is no decision, the Electoral Commission has a power to call for a rerun. And that is why we said that the 4th January decision, if the Electoral Commission sees that they have something contrary or their application of the court directives was hindered by something, then they needed to go back to the court to ask for a review or variation. So the court would have, in their wisdom, would have varied the decision and direction that were given to the Electoral Commission to carry out. So we are of the view that this is a bad precedent. We cannot be part of that particular process because it will endanger the peace and sanctity of our Ghanaian election. I mean, because tomorrow, if I have the power and I see that I am winning election, I can get my hoodlums to go and destroy ballot papers.
If you see that you are losing, or
if you see that you are winning the elections,
but if you're winning, then you don't have to destroy.
No, you can go. You need a seat. Are you not counting the number of seats that they have? Is that not what they resorted to? All that was done through the court direction. Which of the seats that did we lose? It tells you that even if you go deeper, many of the seats that they are sitting in Parliament belongs to us. Do you get it?
And they did that. And we
cannot be a party. We cannot be a party to a process that we feel that it does not have grounds.
But Musa Dankwa says that if you look at the polling and the outcome, you would have lost that election.
For polling, I have never speak against polling because if you look at the structure of the New Patriotic Party, we have always accepted polling. But however, every polling has a minus or a plus. So polling does not actually give you the results exactitude, but it goes closer to the results. So you can fail and you can go above that. So for us, it could have been true and it could have also not been. But looking at the results that we had, the pink sheets that we have put together, because if you look at our collation system, before a pink sheet gets to the Electoral Commission Collation Center, the pink sheet has already been scanned. That is what our collation system does. And that is why Dr. Baumia was able to come out and concede defeat. He did so based on our collation.
So what is it that your pink sheets told you about Ablekuma North?
The pink sheets that told us about Ablekuma North was the data that our General Secretary presented.
That you won it?
We won it by 414 votes.
Okay, so by if you won it.
And you see, let me correct this.
Yeah.
Before, when we went to the center, we had, it is 281 polling stations. We went there with 274 carbonated pink sheets. Okay? When the other 6 pink sheets were coming, then there was an issue. Electoral Commission picked 4 of the pink sheets from us because of the vandalism that happened. And we all know the people or from the party in which they went to do those things. Why would a party, we are saying, even some of the carbonated sheets, yesterday they were with me when we were doing the press conference. It is far above 260, even the carbonated sheet that we have.
But I have a question for you.
Yes.
If your carbonated sheets say that you have won, and from what has happened, the rerun is going to happen in 17, in 19, why don't you just participate? Because you're going to win again.
You see, why do I participate in an election that I have won? Why do I participate in an election that is being called against the law? Why do I participate in such a process? It's like I claiming to have a child, then you claiming to also have the same child. Then the Electoral Commission comes to tell MPP and NDC, okay, NDC is your child, say yes. MPP is your child, say yes. The Electoral Commission say, okay, fine, let's divide the child. The NDC say, okay, let's divide the child. The NDC's position was not even 19 polling stations. If a party lacks principle,
they want to rerun a complete rerun.
If a party lacks principle, you cannot be standing on 37 and stoop so low to agree to a 19. What is your principle? we will stay and die on our principle.
I mean, Professor Sante, I'll come to Tanko shortly. But on that point, though, because of the strength of what they claim to have in the pink sheets that they themselves amassed, and the point that Dr. Sante had made earlier about, Kojo Asante had made about the court should have been the forum for deciding this matter, in principle, they are right not to participate, right? Because if they did, they would be legitimized and illegalities.
It's a very complex matter because now the injunction is sent to court, has been thrown away.
Yeah.
So the ground is now clear for the contest to take place.
In other words, it's presumed that the EC is acting legally.
Exactly.
Until proved otherwise at the end of the court process.
Exactly. So why would you want to abstain? And that's, for me, that's where the difficulty lies. I believe that whatever it is, they should contest. They should contest because we are talking about a constituency that is your stronghold. You are talking about a constituency that you claim you have won. So obviously, if we should go by that logic, the ground is fertile for you to go for the second time and even win. So why are you staying off?
You know, there's a sense I get that because they now know they're in opposition and they have the NDC in power now, there's a sense I get from them people, they may not articulate it openly. They know the ways and means. They do not believe that they can, now they don't even trust the EC. In fact, yesterday when I saw the General Secretary, he almost was siding with the National Chairman of the NDC on the subject of his criticism of the EC's competence on the matter. He guess I cannot defend them anymore, right? So why should they tie their faith in and trust the EC now, considering the flip-flopping that is happening on the subject? Also knowing the way our politics is currently, with election outcomes often very opaque sometimes. Although the process is very predictable, they don't trust themselves. MPP doesn't trust NDC, NDC doesn't trust MPP, and both of them don't trust the EC. It's a very interesting place we are.
That is not...
For the first time, both parties do not trust the EC. He doesn't now. 3 weeks ago, they trusted the EC. They were defending the EC. They were asking for EC chairperson to go. Today, they're almost saying the same thing about the Electoral Commission.
That is not news because the party, depending upon who is in government and who is not, they tend to trust the EC or criticize.
I mean, but this is the first time both parties do.
Yes, for convenience, just for convenience. Okay. But I believe, and I believe strongly that if they should put in appearance, who knows? Because you can't leave this against the backdrop that you are looking at NDC strength, 183. If they should get one, you are talking about, absolute majority in there. And that can cause a whole lot of things in Parliament.
Yeah, hold on to that, though, because I need to explore that in detail, why this is important. I mentioned, but I want to pick your thought and Dr. Sante's thought as well. But Musa Dankwa, I mean, so are you confident going into this Friday thing that NDC wins it?
I think so. I mean, the turnout would favor NDC. They have a reason to go and grab that extra seat. And two, the current polling data for the general perception of the economy and the country doesn't motivate anyone to go and vote against the government that is delivering that kind of result. So they will have a bit of difficulty kind of galvanizing the base to go and vote like that. And then also having known who is in government, people said, okay, we want somebody who can go and lobby and the person will be listened to. And for that case, if you send an MPP MP, I mean, he will not be listened to by the people in power. So
I see the smile on Tanko's face.
No, this politics is very tricky. To send somebody who can walk to the Ministry of Roads and say, hey, my people need the road to be fixed, and they will come there and fix the roads. If you send an opposition candidate, they will go and beg behind the door. It will take several hours before he is. So all this come into play, and then it tends to favor the government that is in power. That was the reason why, after the 1992 elections, they splitted the presidential, they merged the presidential and parliamentary election together so that people who don't have advanced knowledge of who is winning the presidency for them to sway the other way. So I think that is the problem that they have to face come Friday.
I mean, Tanko, you need to explain to me that smile. You seem to agree that you have the upper hand here.
See, Evans, let me correct this thing. MPP is unprincipled political party. Do you know that they are subtly participating in the election?
How?
This evening, the ballot papers, after it was printed, they are sent to the police station. I'm speaking on authority. Their officers were there to check the ballot papers.
But that would be a contradiction of what the General Secretary told me yesterday.
That's what I'm saying.
I asked the question, he said he was aware of the letter the EC wrote to them, but they are not going to be
Evans, I am telling you that
monitoring.
These people, if you listen to them, prepare your coffin very well. I know what they can do, MPP. Since yesterday, they were campaigning. I was with my national chairman, General Seydou Ketia, in the constituency. We crossfire with them around 11 p.m., the MPP. In the constituency, they'll come and sit on platform like this and chant that we are not participating. On the ground, they are there doing door to door. This evening, my colleague, you can put him on record, Mahdi Jibril, he's my other deputy director of election. He policed the ballot papers to the police station at Ablekuma North. MPP officers were there to check the ballot papers. What were they doing over there? You are not participating in election. What are you doing at the check of ballot? Then they come and sit and tell you that they are principal. They are not principal. Look, this is not the first time we are doing a rerun. Akotia, may the MP so rest in peace. In fact, so he was a nice young man. I like him. He's posted and everything. We are mourning with them. Do you know that we ever went and did a rerun for 6 polling stations in Akotia under Farjan? This is not the first time. A rerun where there are issues in polling stations, we go there to resolve it through rerun. This is not the first time. And I was thinking that they are going to hold on to their 92 principle of boycotting and running away from election because they know we are going to hand over a heavy defeat for them come Friday. We are prepared for it because the kind of work we have done for the past 1 week is not small. Door to door, talking to the people and making sure I was selling the good works of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to them. And the people are saying it. Yesterday, if you see the massive crowd that came to greet Asedun Ketia and the team, that tells you that these people are scared because they know if they come up publicly to say that we are contesting the election, we will finish them completely December, come Friday. So they will come publicly and tell you that they are not contesting. Meanwhile, subtly, they are participating in the process. You are not contesting election and you are checking ballot papers. You are checking the authenticity of ballot papers. This is what is happening. Tonight, just tonight, Mahdi is there, Giril. I'm speaking on authority. And tomorrow they call us to come and then and check the figures that we are going to do because after they've removed the 18 and all that. The people said they are coming over there. If their nationals are not aware, their constituency officers are saying they are participating in that process. So please, we are ready for the election. And I'm saying that we are winning it on merit. Already, we won the election. You know, we're declared. As of December 8th, the NDC candidate was declared winner. But because of the Electoral Commission own interest, we don't know what kind of interest they were having at that time, and decided not to accept the results. That's why we brought ourselves to this situation. And I'm saying that, like Venerable Musa Dankwa stated, you don't need even a crack NASA scientist to tell you that MPP cannot win these 19 polling stations. Because the people are benefiting the fruit of their labor. A bag of rice, which used to cost 900 Ghana cedis, is now costing 300 over there. The women were saying it yesterday. That for the 6-month period we have been in office, they used to go to Cantonment Market or Canadian Market and they were buying bag of rice 900. Today, 300 they can get. A container of this in millet, they can get it at this price. Things have reduced for them. And that is what they are looking for. And so why will they go and waste their vote on MPP? Who is virtually in this as a disorganized political party as of now. And also that is a problem. But we are saying that we welcome them. I've been appealing to them since yesterday that when I came from trip, that look, let them come so that we have a beautiful contest. It's good when they are contested, so that when we beat them, it looks beautiful. And so that they will stand in there and they will declare the results that Orabna has won the team, they will raise Orabna hand, and then the woman will also congratulate Orabna. And Haruna will congratulate me because we have done our work well. But when they run away and go and sit somewhere, and then the contest become like what happened in Jisu by election, NDC didn't participate. They went and did their own thing, won their thing, and jubilated among themselves. We didn't say anything. The same thing, I was West War 2019. When they beat the hell out of us, we ran away from the contest. We didn't participate again. They did their own thing. Did that stop the contest? So if they genuinely think that they are not contesting this thing, they should let us know that, look, we are not contesting it. Tell your officers not to go and be checking ballot papers and ballot boxes.
Let me ask him that. Can you confirm that you are very actively involved in checking the ballot papers, the printing, and everything else?
None of our officers is on site. And
are you sure, though?
He has not provided any evidence.
Yeah, I mean,
he just made a comment. And I'm telling you that none of our officers under instruction has gone to supervise anything in Ablekuma North. And let me correct this. You see, you don't compare, when you are comparing matters when it comes to elections, I know you very well. You know how I've stayed in Zabzugu and how we have been confronted with elections. In 2004, you were the director of elections in the northern region. There was chaos in Zabzugu. Ballot boxes were being destroyed. There were no pink sheets for collation. Your then DC, Shamrock, may he so rest in peace, they sat together, put together papers, brought it to Tabale. You people went through, collated that, and declared for Zabzugu, for your candidate. It did not go to court. You are talking about Akwetia. Akwetia's own was a directive by the Supreme Court. It was not a direction by the Electoral Commission. And I have it here, a report by Ghana News Agency. Accra, July 15th. The Supreme Court on Wednesday ordered the Electoral Commission to rerun elections in 6 polling stations. If the court had varied their decision and order and asked that there should be a rerun of those particular 19 polling stations, in the words of the court, the MPP would have participated. Let me tell you, we have never feared elections. We have never. We only go away from elections when it does not meet the principle. We are not an unprincipled party. We are very principled. We know that rule of law must prevail. We are prepared to die on our principle. You don't drink from a hot water when you are thirsty. We want justice. We are not seeking to have parliamentary representation because we know we have won. But we want justice to prevail. We want to clean the mess. We want to ensure that consistency in the electoral process matters to us. The peace of this country matters to us. We don't want a repeat of such process. And that is why we want to purge ourselves of that. We will not participate in an election we believe it is fraudulent, an election we believe is not on the cost of law. And again, the decision in court today is not a decision to declare that the elections is legal. The judge says that they don't want that.
An injunction. We've talked about that. But let me ask you a hypothetical question. Your candidate will still be on the ballot on Friday. I mean, whether you participate or not. Have you written formally to the Electoral Commission?
You don't write in this case. This is not a fresh election. This is a carried over election.
I know.
If they are to continue that exercise in their ways to do a rerun,
Dr. Sande suggested that you could write formally and ask for an extension of time.
We can only do so in court because we believe that the Electoral Commission decision to go for rerun is not grounded in law. We cannot write to a body that does not have the power to decide to do an extension.
Okay.
That one.
And my hypothetical question before I go to Dr. Asante is, your candidate is going to be on the ballot for the 17 polling stations. If at the end of the day, she wins, she's declared the winner, what happens?
We will still be in court because we want justice, not a parliamentary seat.
Okay. But you obviously go to Parliament, you should be sworn in.
It is not us. We want justice. It is not the seat.
Okay.
So if eventually she's elected, we will still fight the case in court because we are going to stay on our principle and ensure that we cleanse this process of any fraudulent dealings.
I mean, Dr. Sante, so you know when parties boycott elections, it doesn't necessarily mean that the elections will be without incident. In fact, in the past, our past experience have shown that when parties take this position, it sets us up for a very tense elections, regardless of how small the polling stations are. Will Cordero be deploying observers to Ablekuma North in those 19 polling stations? And how do we avert what we know has been our sad history in the past when parties take such a position on elections that are pending? Doc, please unmute for me. Yes. Okay,
sure. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm saying that Kodai will not be deploying. I mean, the time is very short. I really think the time was very short, and the Electoral Commission needed to give, the parties sufficient time. I don't think we should have any violence. I'm talking about election fatigue. We don't need people being maimed or hurt because, of election competition. It's completely unnecessary. I think if you look at what has happened, there is no way in which you are going to resolve this matter when the primary source of establishing validity of an election is not available and the parties that are supposed to build consensus are in disagreement. So, in a way, whatever you want, even if it goes to court, the court will come back to the same situation, which is basically to request for a rerun. And I agree that that should be the right process, and not the Electoral Commission, determining that. So it is in that, for me, it's in that spirit that I still make the point about the MPP competing, because it's almost like at the end it's the same outcome that we'll get. But if it is for the principle in terms of the court making that decision, fine. But given the time frame, we don't know when this case will be substantively heard for them to now say they are going to participate. That's why I said that the reasonable thing to do is to ask for an extension in time. You can do that through the court, or there's nothing wrong with asking the Electoral Commission for them to also reconsider that. It doesn't spoil anything for me.
I mean, on the back of this, though, and I know you've just finished the post-election review process, yeah, but the Ablekuma North situation is actually also throwing up a few more things that we need to consider. I think you've touched on one already, which is, so what do you do when the process is disrupted? Yes. How do you account for those ballot boxes and papers that have been destroyed? I mean, on the back of the lessons that we learned in Ablekuma North, which specific reform must we be considering as part of everything else that you've discussed already from the post-election review process?
No, I think the one that we have proposed since 2016 is the electronic transmission of the pink sheets, directly to, it could be a publicly accessible system, as the Kenyans do. So, either through a scanner, you're able to see all the pink sheets, so that if there is any problem with the main pink sheet, the original, that could be a reference point. The Nigerians also have it as well. It just needs to be backed by legislation, so we know the status of those pink sheets. It helps address that problem. It also takes away the incentive that political actors have talked about going to destroy, pink sheets if you are losing and things like that. Because whatever you do, the results as declared at the polling station will be made available. So I think that is, for me, a very, very important step that we must take. And we have to also start publishing polling station data. I think the Electoral Commission did promise us that we'll get that data, and we're waiting for that. But certainly electronic transmission is an easy way. But there are also issues around the whole thing about collation or recollation and all of that. There were some 8 memoirs that the Electoral Commission published on the eve of election, detailing out what should happen at the collation center. But it needs to be elaborated so that people know exactly what the rules are when it comes to the collation process, so that there's consistency in the application across, collation centers, and it's not based on discretion. So those are things that we need to maybe amend some of the CI, particularly 127, to take care of.
And I need a clarity on this. The EC's statement that announced the rerun said the reason why they're doing the rerun in those 19 polling stations is because the presiding officers in those polling stations said they could not verify those pink sheets.
Sure.
And I presume that meant that they could not tell whether their signatures were theirs or whether they signed it or not, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Does that invalidate a pink sheet? I mean, and how do you invalidate the pink sheet?
No, so, I mean, remember that the pink sheets they are talking about was the scanned copies of the, I think the pink sheets
yes,
that the MPP
brought,
submitted.
yes.
So that in the first place, there is nothing in the CI 127 that says that you can use that as an alternative to validate an election. What is expressly clear in the 127 is that the result sheet is what you use. It doesn't say you can use photocopies or scan copies or, there's nothing like that. So everything that has been done is just based on compromise, finding other ways to verify whether or not, and people can challenge it if, there is not an agreement. And that is exactly what has happened in this place. So in some cases, people are confident with it. They will accept other people's carbon copies. They will accept even scan copies in some cases. But in some cases, if they say they are not, then really, there is really nothing in the law that says that the Electoral Commission can just use an alternative. In that case, it is just relying on its general function of ensuring that the elections are concluded and a declaration is made. But people can challenge that in court, that this will not be valid.
I mean, Dr. Sasante, let's talk about the stakes. Why is it so important? It's just one constituency.
One, if you consider a place your stronghold, you want to be able to control it as much as possible for a very long time. Because as you begin to lose your strongholds, you are opening yourself up, and people, the opponent, get the opportunity to also make inroads into other areas that you control. So it's one thing that you don't want to lose sight of, that you want to have your grip on your stronghold at all times. Two, if you look at the dynamics in Parliament, yes, NDC, if they should win this, they are going to get 184. It gives them the power to do a lot of things in Parliament. Take, for instance, if you have absolute majority, you can pass laws easily, and that will not necessarily inure to the benefit of everybody, but it will serve a parochial interest. It can also be potential for abuse of power. And remember, Parliament is a place that when we want to come out with laws, we want all the shades of opinion to be brought to bear on the bill, so that the bill will stand the test of time. If you have one-sided Parliament that we had in after 1992 elections, about 198 MPs on the side of NDC and 2 independent candidates, you realize that a lot of legislations passed through Parliament, and today we are not happy with some of them, saying that yes, it was just approved without going through the rigor and all that. And all these things are things that you want to avoid, because take it or leave it, you always want to have a strong opposition that will put government on its toes and make sure that government does the right thing. But if you have a one-sided Parliament, obviously it's close to a rubber stamp Parliament, and it doesn't help anybody.
I mean, Musa Damka, that is what we're going to have. I mean, if your prediction is anything to go by, they pick up that seat for the first time in our history. I mean, 992, you have to discount that because, there was no contest there. But the first time in our history, in the proper sense, we're going to have a one party with absolute majority 2/3. that is quite significant. That is on the balance of democratic advancement. You don't wonder.
I would have thought that would have been MPP's argument in defending the seat. That would have been a much stronger case to make on the basis of democracy and good governance. And I think people probably would have said, okay, we don't want to be absolute majority in parliament, so let's just go and vote for our party because we don't want this kind of rubber stamp parliament. Not because the government is not delivering, but that would not really be a very strong case. I think if they had gone with that, maybe the people would have come out to deny NDC to test. But now we are in, we are not in. Even if they want to be part, it's too late. People will be confused. The communication to the grassroots may not be consistent. And then people will say, oh, almost a so you will not get the turnout that you expected. I think it probably, I don't know, a lot of polls should have gone into it. Maybe they said they want to boycott on the basis of principle. For that reason, you can't fault them. That's their own stance.
Okay, and so that's all of you have said they should have participated. In fact, all neutrals, yours and Dr. Asante, Dr. Kojo Asante, all said MPP, having had this injunction thrown out, they should have participated. But they said they won't. So we know where we are. And very quickly, Dr. Tanko Rashid, on this point, though, you are clear that you're going to win this. If that happens, you get your 2/3 in Parliament, which is why really you're throwing your heart into, you're throwing everything. Your national chairman was there campaigning. That clearly shows you how serious you're taking this. Yeah. Is it primarily confirmed? Is it primarily why you're doing this? Why this is such a big deal for you?
No, Evans, you see, if you look at the outcome of the 2024 election...
briefly, though, because I need to...
I'll tell you that MPP currently cannot hold to a constituency and say this is a stronghold. We dislodged them over 20 constituencies, which we never won since 1996. Oh. We dislodged them completely. And then because of our spurious strategy and plan, we dislodged them from those constituencies, which they were claiming as their stronghold. Ablekuma North cannot be their stronghold. Looking at what we did in 2024, yeah. and even the polling is showing that MPP currently, I know why they are running away publicly. So we are making sure that we want to have a peace of mind in Parliament.
Okay.
I see, if we want to have a peace of mind, you know, they are 84 or 88 that they have. Look at the problem they are.
So you want to have peace of mind?
We want to have a peace of mind.
To do what you want.
To make sure that we pass the right deals into laws. Ghanaians will have the benefit that they want from good governance. And that is what we are doing.
Haruna, so for you, this chapter is closed. We are waiting for the substantive matter to be determined in court, and then you can have your redress.
We're a principal party. We stay to our principle. We want the law to work.
Okay.
I'll see them there tomorrow.
And that is Haruna Mohammed, and that is Tanko, and that is Musa Dankwa. You've also heard Professor Asante and Dr. Kojo Asante of the CDD. Enjoy the rest of your evening.